Hello and welcome to Let's Review. So, it's getting closer to Christmas, the decorations are now up, and...
Do I really have to wear this hat?
Yes, you do. It's Christmas, it's one of the happiest times of the year. So you are going to wear that hat, and I am going to talk about a tale of misery, pain, starvation, and death. The Banner Saga was originally funded through Kickstarter, and was one of the fairly big successes of that medium. It's heavily influenced by Norse mythology, but the question is it actually any good? Well, let's start with the gameplay. There are two main gameplay segments to the Banner Saga. The first is its turn-based combat system.
The combat system of the Banner Saga is a turn-based tactical affair. At the beginning of most battles, you'll be able to place your units where you wish. So for example, I have 6 units currently available, which is the maximum for each fight. So I'm going to place my archer group around here, and my mender, who is a mage, there. And I'm going to have them flanked on each side by my 2 heavier units. You will notice that these units, who are Val, take up 4 squares, whereas my humans only take up a single square. I'm now going to begin the battle. I'm going to begin by turning everyone's health and armor indicators on. Now you will notice this guy has started with slightly reduced health. That's because he was injured in a previous battle and he hasn't had time to recover yet. So I'm going to move him forward. And then I'm going to have him end his turn because he's not in attack range of anybody. Once again, I'm going to move him forward, and he is a melee only unit, so he's going to stay there. He's taking some light damage there. Now Rook here is my archer, and he's also one of my biggest damage dealers. So if I look at the range of his attack, if I move him forward by 1 place, he can target him. However, in order to keep my formation roughly the way I want it, I'm going to move him forward 2 places. So he's going to target this enemy. Now I can either target his armor, which will cause him to take more damage in the future, or I can target his health directly. The lower your health, the lower the amount of damage you actually do, which means that targeting the health of particularly dangerous enemies can be a good way to reduce how dangerous they are. Now I will do a baseline 6 damage with this attack, but I can also use additional willpower in order to increase the damage. So 1 point of willpower will do 7, then 8. But I'm going to do the full 9 damage here to hit him as hard as possible. In order to use willpower, you need not only willpower but also exertion. Willpower does not recover unless you use certain special abilities in order to make it recover. Now Oddleif's range is relatively limited, so instead I'm going to use her special attack, Rain of Arrows, and use it there. That will place a trap, so if any enemy attempts to walk over that square, the arrow will drop on them and they will take damage. Now unfortunately I did not move Alette far enough forward there, which means she's out of range to hit any enemies, so she's just going to end her turn. And I'm now going to move forward my Mender, who is effectively a mage type character. He has 2 abilities. One repairs the armor of any ally, and the other is Arc Lightning, which causes damage to enemies, as well as leaping to other enemies if they are on a diagonal to each other. So if I target this guy with the maximum power of Arc Lightning, it will hit not only him, but also him and him, and it does increasing damage the further forward it goes. As such, it's a very, very useful weapon if the enemies bunch up significantly. Now you'll notice there's a 50% chance here. That means that there is a 50% chance that the attack will be successful. That's because the enemy has a chance to block it. Now you'll notice he has no exertion and thus cannot make use of willpower, so he is limited to basic strikes. So I'm going to attack this guy's armor. But this guy unfortunately has very high strength and thus hits extremely hard. However, he also has good strength, so he can do a lot of damage. Sufficient enough to kill that guy. Now their slingers, as you will notice, are also range characters. Now I don't actually have to move here, And you will notice Rook is now down to 1 willpower. So even though he has the exertion to use 3, he can only use 1 because that's all he has left. However, up here we have the Warhorn, which boosts every time you kill an enemy. So I can spend 1 point from the Warhorn to give Rook a 2nd point of willpower, allowing him to fire off a shot for 3 damage, for 8 damage I should say. That will kill that guy in a single hit. That was a special attack from the enemy, which destroys armor. I'm going to move oddly forward, target him, and I'm going to have her target his armor, because I need to strip that away before I can do any real damage to him. Unfortunately, I suspect I'm about to lose one of my shield guys, or pretty soon anyway. Now, a 20% chance there is not even worth taking the shot. However, it is worth firing that to do significant damage to his armor. If I can strip the armor of one of these guys completely, then it should be sufficient to actually allow me to kill them very, very easily. Now, I'm going to use his arc lightning attack, even though it'll kill my ally, because I need to cripple that guy's strength as much as I possibly can, and arc lightning ignores armor completely. Again, some of these guys are very tough and quite difficult to kill. Rook is actually one of the few units who has both a ranged attack and a melee attack, but he is far more useful at range, so I'm going to pull him back. Sometimes if enemies are clustered very close together, you can actually hit multiple enemies, which can be useful. Now, unfortunately, this battle is not going too well, as you can see. In fact, I'm almost certainly going to lose it, but this still gives you a good demonstration of the combat system, which is a little unforgiving. However, it should be noted that losing a battle does not require loading of a save game or anything like that. Should you lose a battle, the game will continue as if you lost that battle, and you will survive it through some element of plot contrivance. Now, I've significantly reduced the danger of this guy because, as you can see, he's just not hitting very hard anymore because he's lost most of his strength. Sufficient to the point where she was able to get the kill. He, however, has also lost most of his strength and is thus not that useful for dealing raw damage. In fact, he's now down. I'm going to use the horn to give Rook enough willpower to kill this guy in a single shot. Which means there's now only one enemy left, which means we no longer alternate turns. We now go simply by speed order. Which means I should be able to pull a lot of my guys out. Now, unfortunately, if you're attacking at range, you've got to be in melee range, which sounds a bit odd. But the range at which you can perform a ranged attack is identical to the distance that you can cover and then attack using a melee attack. Which personally I find a little bit annoying because it limits the effectiveness of your ranged characters significantly. However, this battle will be close, but I still think I can win it. I'm going to have her target his armor once again. And that should be sufficient for Rook to get the kill. There we go. So yes, several members of my party will come out of that battle injured, but I have achieved victory. And several of them are also ready for promotion. And at the end you gain a bunch of renown, which can be used as effectively as a form of currency. And fundamentally, that's the combat system of the Banner Saga.
The second is the journey itself.
The journey system of the Banner Saga follows you as you travel across the land. So this down here is my caravan, which scuttles along. And up here we have various stats relating to it. So we have the amount of supplies we have left, the current morale of our group, our renown, the ability to go into the options menu, the world map, and the ability to camp. Every so often, one of these events will come up and you have to choose how to react to it. So for example, here we have some accusations of stolen chickens. And the fighters are complaining that they're spread too thin. So we have to figure out ways to deal with it. So we could carry on, we could try and address the major issues. However, I think I will personally try and keep people useful, too busy for petty squabbles. So as a result of that, we've gained some supplies. Now I'm going to demonstrate the camp. You can choose to do this at just about any time while you're actually travelling along. And you may occasionally have the ability to talk to one of your party members. You can rest for a day, which will help you heal up and improve your morale, but it will of course use up a day's worth of supplies. You can also choose to upgrade your available heroes. So this is about mid-game. And we have Rook, who's now level 4, and I could theoretically promote him to level 5, which is the maximum level. However, I would need 20 renown, and I currently only have 11. I can also equip items on them. So for example, Ivor's currently got a lightning runestone, which gives him a 10% chance of doing double damage, and it also causes him to draw more aggro from the enemies, which, given that he's got a big shield and quite a lot of health, is quite useful. So I'm going to demonstrate how you promote now by promoting Oddleaf, who is one of my archers. She only needs 10 to be promoted because she's currently going from rank 2 to rank 3. So if I do that. Now she's gained an upgrade to her ability, so she can drop 2 arrows through rain of arrows rather than just 1. And she's also gained 2 ability points that I can put into any of these. Now these are actually showing the maximum rank they can ever be, so she's never going to have a strength higher than 9. So in this case I'm going to put it into exertion, which allows her to use more willpower on each turn, which is extremely useful. And I'm now almost completely out of renown again. You can also do a training fight, which won't get you any renown, but it is useful for practicing various things. I'll just demonstrate how you rest. And you will notice that the morale of the caravan has gone up a little, but we've lost a day's worth of supplies. Now, there is a separate indicator for how many supplies you actually have, but it's hidden behind various things. So your number of supplies and how long those supplies last is obviously determined by how many clansmen, fighters and Varl you have. The more people you have, the faster you'll burn through supplies. It's also worth noting that once you run out of supplies, then your numbers will start to decrease slowly. You'll lose a few per day, which can be very problematic, especially later on when you need those numbers for some of the larger scale battles.
Honestly, I have a bunch of problems with the gameplay. While the turn-based tactical system is pretty damn good and pretty solid, the journey itself can be extremely frustrating at times. The events that crop up have a bad habit of screwing you royally, taking either your supplies or killing some of your men, and honestly it feels like it's trying to punish you for trying to be a good person.
Is that not simply a reflection of the game's narrative atmosphere?
I thought you only usually natter during the story segment.
Yes, but since this is a case of story affecting gameplay, I felt my inclusion was warranted.
Yeah, it probably was. The thing is, I get that they were trying to create this dark and oppressive atmosphere to match with the tone of the story, but ultimately it just ends up feeling a bit cheap and unfair. And I know that matches with the world they're trying to create, but it just prevents it from being fun, which I think is a bit of a problem. It's also got this annoying habit of preventing you from buying food just prior to you leaving a town for story reasons, and that can end up being really, really frustrating.
It's very thematic.
Yes, it's very thematic, but that doesn't stop it from pissing me off. Look, I also have a problem with the large-scale battle system. The simple reason for that being that it just doesn't explain itself. I have no idea what the options I'm given actually mean. What will formations do? What's the result of hold them off? I can't tell, and that makes making decisions really damn infuriating because I don't know what I'm actually doing. Overall, I have to describe the gameplay as mixed. There's a lot of bits I like about it. I do genuinely like the combat system. I like the tactical nature of it. I like the RPG elements. But everything surrounding it just annoys me. So, if the gameplay is negatively impacted by the story, is the story at least good? Well, the Banner Saga follows two caravans, one on a diplomatic mission, and the other fleeing from their lives from the Dredge, a race of armor-plated monsters who destroy anything and everything in their path. As you would expect with a story with two separate groups, they eventually meet up and end up fighting one of the Dredge leaders. Now, I have a problem with this story for a couple of reasons, the most notable of which is that it has the classic problem of all stories that are told from multiple perspectives.
No main character?
Bingo. Now, it's not necessarily a problem, and a lot of media genres can handle it very well. It can work very well in books and on TV, and it even works pretty well in film, providing the film has enough length to characterize them all. In games, however, I think it's a very difficult thing to do. The simple reason is that you kind of need a player character, someone for the player to embody. You can usually get away with having a couple of player characters, but any more than that you start running into problems, and the Banner Saga just has too damn many. It actually reaches the point whereby the original player character that you start off as has completely faded into the background by the end of the game and is barely relevant at all.
Did the creators not say that they were creating the tale of the caravan rather than any of the characters within it?
They did, and honestly, I think that was kind of a mistake on their part, because I cannot get emotionally attached to a caravan. I don't even really care about Rook, who's the closest thing we actually have to a proper protagonist. He's the one we spend the most time with, at least. But I just don't care. I'm meant to care about the relationship between him and his daughter, but I just don't. And honestly, I think the reason for that is the tone of the entire game. Tell me, what usually make the best moments of character interaction?
It's in the small things, the sharing of a drink or a story or a joke. Even in dark times, people turn to gallows humor. Oh god, this game is completely dour at all times, isn't it? And none of the characters ever get out of the earth-shatteringly important mode, do they? None of the characters have any actual personality, do they?
Nope. Well, at least none that I can remember anyway. Because the game never really focuses on any of them, we never get a feel for any of them. I mean, I couldn't really tell you anything about any of them. Well, okay, I could tell you that one of them doesn't like killing people, but the only reason I know that is because it's in the bloody achievements. And then there's the main plot. Here's the thing. I gave you the setup earlier. Would you like to tell me where it goes from there?
Well, we have a group fleeing from their homes, so I would assume that they reach a point of refuge, only to find that it's not as safe as they had hoped. Another point of refuge will be destroyed before they reach it, and I would assume as well that there is some sort of heroic last stand against impossible odds.
You know, this is the perk of having an expert in cliché around.
Oh, and there's almost certainly some sort of magical weapon, which is the only thing that can slay the villain. And, oh god, don't tell me it transpires that the villains are all fleeing from something worse.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I think I may hate the plot of this game.
Look, I've said it before and I'll say it again. There's nothing wrong with clichés, providing you do something interesting with them. And the Banner Saga just doesn't. I do not like the plot or the characters of this game. And ultimately, I think we should just move on. The art for this game is really damn good. The character models are nice, the backgrounds are absolutely gorgeous, and there's some wonderful work all throughout. Overall, I have nothing but compliments for the art team. I think they're very, very talented. And there's nothing else really worth saying here. So let's just move on. As with the art, the music is absolutely fantastic. It's grand, it's majestic, and it sounds absolutely wonderful. I only really have one single quibble with the soundtrack, and it's actually related to the credits of the game. Now, the credits for the Banner Saga are very, very long. I get why. They wanted to thank all their Kickstarter backers, and that's perfectly reasonable. But for some reason, the music cuts out about 5 minutes into the credits. Why? You have a fantastic score, why don't you make use of it? Because if you don't, it just ends up with me having to sing over them, and then you end up with this.
Shadows fall, and hope has fled. Steel your heart, the dawn will come. The night is long, and the path is dark. Look to the sky, for one day soon the dawn will come.
And you really do not want that. So, did I enjoy the Banner Saga? Honestly, not really, no. Should you buy it? This is a little tricky. The main reason is that I can see why a lot of people like this game. It's got a really good, solid battle system, but honestly, I can't recommend it. There's too much about it that annoys me. At the end of the day, it might be worth getting if you can snag it at a significant discount, but personally, I don't recommend it. Honestly, I think I'm just sick of all the depression in today's media. Just because you're trying to tell a dark and serious story doesn't mean it's got to be depressing. I need something bright and Christmassy to cheer myself up. Any ideas? Well, there is always this. Oh, you magnificent bastard. If you'll excuse me, we're going to go watch the best Christmas film ever made. I'll see you later.
Over the ground lies a mantle of white. A heaven of diamonds shine down through the night. Two hearts are thrilling in spite of the chilling the weather.